Hey guys, welcome to Living in the Aftermath. This is Lyndsey, your weekly trauma host. This week we are joined by Jennie, and I met her virtually first, and I fell in love with her music. She sent me one of her songs, and she is absolutely incredible. She is also a survivor of domestic violence, and so I am going to let her kind of jump into her story. We're going to talk about it, and I hope you guys like it. So welcome, and in the middle of a snowstorm too. Goodness gracious.
We've already gotten a foot. And what's
Yay!
so crazy, girl, is most people don't know this. All right. So I only live 40 minutes outside of New York City, but I have a full farm. I had cows. I have 2 horses. I have chickens. I've got rabbits. I've got the whole thing. We are on a top of a mountain, and people think of like Jersey as like Newark or whatever. No, I'm in the country of New Jersey. Okay.
To visit. I want to come and stay on your farm. I love the nothingness. If I could live in the nothingness, I totally would. I told my husband, that's what I want. Move me somewhere where I can have absolutely nothing and I will be totally happy.
Honestly, it's the best place ever. I have my little town. I have my little church. I feel for the first time in my life, you're going to understand this. I feel at home. And that feels
It's a
is
hard
very
thing.
different.
Well, and somewhere that you feel safe. I think people don't really understand that because, like, right now, like, I love my home and I love my life, but I live 15 minutes south of where I lived with my abuser.
Wow.
Yeah, and
You're
he
still
lives an
there.
hour yeah, and he still lives in the same area. He lives an hour north of us. And fun fact, we had a protected address through the courts, and one of my previous attorneys released our address on accident to him. So now he has our address. And I mean, the attorney apologized. They knew what they did was wrong, but how do you fix that? I can't sell my house and move. And I mean, my daughter's graduating this year. I have a son going into high school. If I was like, "Hey guys, we're moving," they would retaliate, you know? And so I don't think a lot of people understand. Yes, I love my life now and it's beautiful, but there is something to be said about feeling safe where you're at. And I don't necessarily feel that.
Isn't that the hardest? We're just going to literally jump into that though. But when I first left too, that was the craziest thing is where I was from. Personalized license plates were like a thing. So I remember seeing him drive 7 hours to come find me
Hmm.
and drive past my apartment and things like that. And now that the internet is so here and we're so social and we're on TikTok and Instagram, it's very easy for people to find us. But not a lot of people can understand that even if you feel safe. I've called the cops, so I feel so bad. I'm like, "There's a person that's sitting outside my driveway," and it's an Amazon delivery guy, and I'm like,
Honestly, when
"But it's
you've lived
here."
in extreme trauma, your body goes back there every single time. It's not something that
100%.
just goes away. And I think, too, that was another reason why I found so much purpose and passion in this podcast was because I held myself to such a high standard of becoming what I was before my trauma or not being scared or making my body not feel the things that it feels. And that is not real at all. I feel every single thing that I did the day I left. I just am better at dealing with it now. And it took me a really long time to give myself that grace and understand. My husband says all the time, "You're not broken, you're bent." And I'm like, "Thanks, honey."
But
It's
it's
true. But I feel broken. Like there are so many times where I feel broken. And he's like, "You're not." But I feel that.
well, I also think too that people like you and I have lived through things that people don't normally understand, or I hate to say it like this because it does kind of sound judgmental when I say it, but like you can't comprehend it unless you've been through it. And there's so many people that are like, well, why didn't you just leave? Or why didn't you just do this or whatever? And it's like, that wasn't an option.
Yep.
We survived. Like, I'm like, oh, I can handle it. Like, I've got this. I know A plus B equals C. This is how this is going to go for me. This is how this day is going to work. You're there, you go through it. And then when you get out of it, it's like you have a amazing person that's treating you right, and you're still feeling the same feelings. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter how much time passes. You're still afraid of every car that's up at the driveway. You're still afraid of every person that walks by you. Like it doesn't ever just go away. And I
Yeah.
think that that's exactly what you just said is like, we do feel broken. I think,
Hmm.
or at least I do, and you
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm like, I will never trust any person again.
Yeah.
And it's not male or female too. That's what's interesting about abuse.
Yep. I relate to that.
It's like, I feel like I literally, even though I love my parents,
Mhm.
love your mom and dad, but it's like, does any person ever really have your back?
I
Because
feel that.
when we're going through it, I don't know your story yet. I would love to talk to you about it, but, like, when I was in it for so long. It's like, well, how did you guys not see, what was happening? But
Yeah,
but at the same time, we're very good at, like, masking, pretending. It is what it is, but it hurts. It's
it
like, I
does.
kinda want someone in to come and save you, right?
Well, and not only that, like one example that I'll give, right? After I got myself out, because I think too, there's nothing that anyone could have said to me to make me
100.
leave any sooner than I did, right? But after, so I wasn't allowed to sleep the last year that I was with my abuser. I was insane. I felt crazy. And then when he did fall asleep, I wouldn't get up to go to the bathroom. I wouldn't roll over if I was uncomfortable because I was terrified to wake him up. Okay. Oh, then when I'm finally in an apartment and I'm safe, right? But he's driving my apartment complex because at this point I have to tell him where the kids are because custody isn't set of them. We're not divorced, all of these fun things, right? And so I'm anxious and I say, can you please come and sit at my house so I can sleep? Because I need to know someone else is watching. I can't just locking my door that's not it. I can't do that. I need someone sitting here. No one understood that. No one understood what that meant to me, or when they would say, I'll come help you, and then they would never show up. That is almost a trigger phrase to me still to this day. If you say, I'm going to come and help you, do that. Or don't say anything at all because I hold on to that like nobody's business. That those words mean something to me. And I agree. After you've gone through something, you just come to realize you are the only person that will ever fight for you the way that you do. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's such a fucking isolating feeling.
No, it honestly is though, and it is so frustrating to explain to people because I feel like now my husband, I know he has my back, but I will say he is the only human on this planet that I know would sacrifice himself to put me before him. And that, I mean, I love my parents, I do, but I always say they love me, but they don't like me. They love me because and I do, I feel that. I know they
Yeah.
love me, but they don't like who I am as a human necessarily. And that's a hard thing to accept because that almost makes you question yourself. And then when people come in and they're like, oh, well, yeah, this isn't really okay. Well, then, okay, what's wrong with me? Well, nothing's wrong with me, but I have been made to feel like things are wrong with me for a really long time. And then when other people come and reinforce that, that's not a very easy thing to overcome. So, since we
We're
completely
gonna, like,
like
go.
jumped past this, where does your story start? I
Mm.
know. And I feel like that's always such a hard question, right? Because I feel like, okay, I met my abuser at 16, but I was told from being a child, like a lot, if you could just learn to talk less, you would get in trouble less. And then that translated into my abuser saying, maybe you shouldn't talk in public. No, you don't want to sound stupid.
Wait, did
And
you
that made
actually
me,
meet your abuser at 16?
I did. I
Okay.
did. I was with him for, 18 years, just under 18 years.
Damn, girl. Okay.
It was a long time, but I met him as a sophomore in high school, and so now I go and talk to high schools because, I mean, no one in my family liked him, but when I met him very, very early on in our relationship, he shared that his birth dad had given up rights to him and his siblings, and that it was a really toxic relationship and that he was scared of him. And so then when my parents, or I had very few friends, but the few friends I did, if anyone would say something feels weird or something feels off, I already had this, well, his birth dad gave up rights to him and you don't know this information about him, but I do. And so I just dismissed any warning anyone gave me. And so I don't know, as I became a mother of a teenager, I was like, what could I have said to myself? Because there was nothing anyone said to me. And I don't know who I would have listened to. Probably not very many people,
No one.
but maybe I would have listened to someone who lived through it. And so I go into high schools now and I just say, like, I talk about the day I met him and I don't tell it scary because it wasn't. It was my life. I fell in love with this person and I gave everything of me to him. And now looking back, I can see how everything progressed, but I would have never seen it living it. But I think when I lay it out like that and I'm like, no, it started here and then it went here and then it went here. And I wasn't physically abused until the last 3 years I was with him. But I was very much abused prior to that. But I would never have said that or even realized that until now. if that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and I actually love that we're having this conversation because I think there's so many different ways that this can happen, right?
Mhm.
There's the grooming or all the things that can happen, especially I don't know how you guys were the same age, yes?
So he was a senior when I was a sophomore,
Okay.
but so in the state of Utah, I don't know if you know much about Utah, but
I watched Real
Mormonism.
Housewives of Salt Lake City, but that's all
It
I've got.
is so accurate. You've got it. If you've watched the show, you've got it. But being raised Mormon, it's very much you're taught that your voice doesn't matter, that you're supposed to lean on your husband. He knows all the things. He has the priesthood. He gets revelation from God. And your
Mm-mm.
job is to be a mother and a supporter of your husband. And so I didn't really have dreams growing up. I didn't have, this is what I want to be. I just wanted to be a really good wife and a mom. And so when I got put into that role very, very young, no one questioned it. I didn't question it. I had my first baby right after I turned 20. I do think I'm a good mom. I try to be a good mom, but I can see looking back that that was all leading up to me not having a voice. I very much believed that having boundaries was disrespectful, and I didn't have any communication with him when I would say like, "Hey, this doesn't feel right," or "I don't like this." It would be like, "Well, then you must not love me." One example that I give that like religious trauma, we went into a bishop, we had premarital sex, which is a big no-no in our religion, and he still thought he wanted to go on a mission, so we went into this bishop, and the bishop told us in that meeting, "Once you two are married, you can do whatever the other person wants." That phrase was then used against me in such a negative, dark, evil way. And so anytime I was like, "Oh, I don't feel like it," he would say, "Well, don't you remember the bishop said we're supposed to do whatever the other person wants?" And that was a man of God. That was someone who had revelation. And so it just became this really fucked up, you don't have a voice, your voice doesn't matter, even if you have a voice. I never questioned it. That was my role. I was his wife and I was good at it. And I was proud of myself for how good I was to him, if that makes sense.
Does. It does. And honestly, that it's terrifying too.
Yep.
It
How subtle
is.
it is. There's nothing anyone could have said to me in that to make me see it any differently than what I did.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, sister. Like, it's
That's all
just
right. No
I know
sorries.
you're like, "We're fine." But that's what we do it with trauma. We're like, "We got through it. We're okay."
It's true. I'm alive.
It
I know. I make a joke all the time. Like someone said something one time and they're, "Oh, like, don't worry. We don't hold you prisoner here." I'm like, "Don't worry. I tried that one time. I won't let you." People don't. And it's just this stupid, fucked up joke that to me is like, that's how I
dark
cope.
humor that gets us through
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. I have a little bit of a different story. My dad is very prominent in the military. Love him. I really do. I have the best family. I do. And they'll tell you differently only because I think they still beat themselves up, just to be
Yeah.
completely honest, for what I've experienced. But when I was 16, I was raped and it literally like put me on a trajectile of just I'm going to let men do whatever the fuck they want to me because I think when you're so young too, and I don't know, we'll maybe talk about this on another day, but like the church and like everything that has like that kind of energy around it, it's like, I don't know. I feel like you just kind of surrendered yourself in some ways. It's a weird fucking feeling, but I went through that experience and then literally I just went down this like downward spiral where cause I moved around so much. Like I didn't have a stable place. I was like here, there, and I'm going to sound so weird when I say this, but I love my dad. It's not his fault. But you moved me freshman year and then sophomore year and then back to the place that I was at for my senior year of high school. And it was like, any high schooler that had to transition that much, like, wouldn't have been good. And then add that onto it.
Yeah.
So that happened at the restaurant. And then I just kind of went down this like rabbit hole of I'm going out to bars and I'm drinking and I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing at the age I was doing it. And I met my ex and he was 15 years older than me.
Hmm.
Oh, he was 33 and I was 17. And the
Girl.
first thing he ever said to me is I was like dancing on the bar and I remember I bent over to talk to somebody and he grabbed my stomach and I already had body image issues just because who doesn't?
Hmm.
Whatever. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
But he grabbed my stomach and he was like, "So if you're going to work here, you need to lose that." And He did. And that was the first thing he ever said to me. And I was like, I don't like this man. And it became a running joke in our 8-year, almost 9-year relationship. But at the same point in time, I was like, what in my brain space made me decide that that's who I wanted to go be with? Right.
Girl, I totally get it. Not to interrupt your story, but like I'm
Right.
resonating on a cellular level right now because so I met my abuser. He told me that I had dated other people, but he had not experienced that. And so if we were supposed to be together, he needed to go date other girls and I just needed to wait for him. So I was like, okay, we're supposed to be together. Like that's what religion tells us. So please go do this. So he comes back and he dates in front of me. I watch him date other girls. Okay. And he comes back and he tells me, I'm not physically attracted to you, but I know you're going to take care of me the best. And I was like, I will take care of you the best. Totally blew past that I'm not physically attracted to you. And that continued. Like when I was pregnant, I felt so shitty about myself. And he just would pick at those things. And he showed me that. He showed me that when we were dating. And I just was like, bye, red flag, please give me more. And so they do that all the time. And it's like these little things that chip away from your self confidence that you would never see as a big problem because it's just this little teeny tiny thing. But it's not ever just the one little tiny thing ever.
No. And I think for us, and maybe I'm speaking for you, but now it's like I now have to prove myself to him.
Hmm.
It's like now
Hmm.
I have to.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll go starve myself. I'll go through it. Like I'll do whatever it
Yeah.
is.
To be
You
good
want
enough.
right.
Yes. Yes.
That's where it gets in your head. And then it's almost this mind game. And I don't know about you, but like when the physical stuff happened, for me it was pretty instant. Loved mm, duct tape and like he really took it to levels that I'm not comfortable talking about, but I will say, like, for me, it was like, okay, if I can survive this, I can survive that. It's like Mario. Like you
Yep.
keep leveling up and you're like, okay, well, I'll get through that and I'll do this and I'll do that. And it's like you have to like prove yourself to be worthy enough for this man, but like why?
Well, and one thing that I don't think I've realized until you just said something, but like for me, one thing that I talk about now is it took me a really long time to accept that I was sexually assaulted in my marriage. For me, those two things never could coexist. If I was
Right.
married, I couldn't be sexually assaulted by him. And so it took me a really long time to realize that that was the case, that that happened. On top of that, I think all of these really dark, evil things that I didn't want to do that made me feel really gross and really awful, things that I don't want to talk about because they make me feel ashamed and disgusted as a human with myself. And I said yes. And so I feel like I can't be mad because I did it. I did that. And so then you lead up to all these things and you're like, okay, well, how am I going to talk about any of this? Like we've done all of these things. You're not just, you know what I mean? And so it's like they condition you with like feeling really crappy about yourself and doing things that you feel ashamed by that you don't want to share with people. So then other things that you might share with people, you already are conditioned not to do that. And I don't even think I really thought about that until this very moment.
Honestly, I had a really dear friend of mine say to me the other day, they were just like, if you were in a situation and you didn't want to perform sexually and they just made you do it anyway, that is still rape. And I think the R word is so hard for me to say because I experienced what that was when it was taken from me as a child. Like I look
Yeah.
at my 16-year-old self, but then I look at my adult-ish self and I'm like, well, it's two different things, but no, it's
It's
not.
not.
It's the
No.
exact same thing. It's like when you don't want to do that for your significant other, you should not
Yep.
have to do that,
No.
regardless of how you feel, or you're married, or you have this legally binding contract or religion. And I think that's honestly something that is just not talked about at all.
No.
Well, it is. And also, I think that there's so much pressure society puts on us to like have this perfect relationship and this, that, and the other thing. And we have the Instagram and the TikToks and like
Mhm.
content creators like you and I are. So it's like, well, that couldn't happen to us. That's happening behind closed doors.
No.
We have the greatest situation, right? And then when you actually think about what happened to you, what happened to us, I
Yeah.
never want that. I didn't want
No.
things to happen. And I will never forget when like I walked into my therapist's office the day we had talked about it, and I was like, "I'm leaving. I can't do this anymore." He had held a gun to my head. You've seen the music video. That is, like, tried and true. That's what happened. I knew I was gonna die. But I came in and my entire face was, like, cut up and bruised, and she was like, "What happened to you?" And I just said to her, I was like, "Well, he wanted to fuck me, and so he threw me against a brick wall and just did it." And she was like, "Do you realize that's not normal, right?" And I was like, "No, because that's what I've ever known. It's not a want, it's a they have a need, and then you perform for them." It's
Yes.
almost like fucking Taylor Swift, Life of a Showgirl, but, like, in the most
Literally.
version possible.
Literally.
And I think as you just said, I just don't think enough people have that situational awareness that, like, that's not okay because
Well, and then to be brave enough to be like, "Okay, that wasn't my fault." Like, yes, I said yes, I complied, but that wasn't my fault, right? Because you were manipulated into that or coerced into that or however you wanna word it, right? If you had sex with someone and it wasn't something you wanted to do, that
100%.
you were assaulted.
Well, and also greater of two evils, right? So, like,
Mhm.
in my brain, sometimes I would think, like, "Okay, I'll just, like, lay here and let it happen because that's better than the alternative."
Fighting back. Well, and that's
Right.
why I say, like, the night that he beat the crap out of me, that we went to jury trial for, I know I had sex with him that night. That is what I had to do. My phone was shattered. I had no way to get out of the house. My nose was broken. I felt awful, but I still had sex with him because that is what I had to do because there was no way I was gonna survive another beating, and I knew that.
100%. But people I'm sorry, people. People don't get that. People look
No.
at us like, "Well, you
You must have
or
wanted
whatever."
it. Do you know how many times I've gotten the comment, "Well, I wanna see what he looks like. His dick must have been really big." And I'm like, "You are a sick individual." Like,
Well,
absolutely sick.
it's literally nothing to do with that. It's literally how do I survive this moment right
Mhm,
now, and how do I
mhm.
get to the next? And we're at that point, I feel like you and I, we're not even thinking of surviving. It's just like, let's just get us to the next spot because
The
we
next
don't.
minute.
Yeah, there's no, like, future outcome. At that time, I didn't think I would have children. I know that you did with him, but I was at the point where I was just like, "This is just how it's gonna play out." Like,
Mhm.
until somebody literally comes to save me.
Yeah. I'm just in my head, I remember sitting in my boss's office. My abuser had lost his job. He refused to go back to work, so he never left the house. So I went back to work, and he did eventually have me switch to an at-home position, which is where the held prisoner joke came into play because we were all at home and he wasn't working. But right before that happened, I remember I went into my boss's office and I remember sitting there and I was like, I am never going to have a house. I'm never going to have a car. Life just felt like I was surviving day to day and that was all I was doing. There was nothing more than that. I was going home, I wasn't sleeping, I was miserable. I was getting my ass kicked nearly daily at this point, and I had gone back to him. I had chosen this. I did it. And so I was so broken. I felt hopeless. I felt like there was nothing. And honestly, it took me getting to the point where I knew I was going to die for me to want to leave. It wasn't because I didn't love him. I still, in my brain, believe I loved him the day he was arrested. I believe I loved him because I did give my everything to him. I don't think he deserved it. I don't think he loved me back, but I do believe that I loved him. I stood up for him. I defended his actions. I lied to police officers. If you don't call
Me
that
too.
love, then what the
Oh, yeah,
hell was it? You know?
100%.
And
Girl,
so, like, I believe I loved him. And so I say that all the time. Like, for a while, I used the phrase, like, I believe I loved him. Well, I did love him. I did. I loved him. He didn't love me.
you know what's really weird? And I'm gonna just ask you this because I feel like you and I could just, like, talk about all of these things. I genuinely feel they did love us, but in their own fucked up way.
I think they loved what we provided for them.
Thank you. It's the image.
Yes.
Yes,
When
and it's like
when I
this.
didn't mess with what his image
Mhm.
was and how his life functioned. So I tell the time, like, I set the alarm and I got him up for work. I made his lunch. I laid his clothes on the bed. I got the kids off to school. He would come home to dinner. I did all the laundry. I did all the things. And I was happy to do it. I was so proud of myself. I was like, oh my hell, look at how efficient I am. I am the best mom. I am the best wife. And it was fine. I knew how to manage it. I knew how to manage him. As long as that was working, I felt like I was happy. Right. And so, but I didn't know what love was. And how do you know if you've never felt it or been in it, or you know what I mean? Like, how would you?
100%. I think it's more or less like, "Fuck you, Disney. Don't sue us." Like,
Right?
seriously, like, there was this meme that's, like, going around, and it's like, "I've always been told I'm gonna be a princess, I just didn't know I was gonna be Cinderella," like, that kind
Yep.
of situation,
Yeah.
like, where it's like, you're doing all these things and you do feel accomplished, just like you said, it's like you get through the day, like, you have done all of the things that you honestly don't really wanna do, but you're doing it
Yep. And you do it
because
good.
yeah, because 'cause we're a wife, we're a mom, we're this and that and the other thing. I think that the hardest thing to realize is that's never gonna be good enough for people like them. And it's always gonna be something else. There's always gonna be dog piss on the floor. There's always gonna be something that they can complain about or get mad at you for or this, that, and the other thing. And so even though you know that you've done an incredible job, because you and I both do, it still is never going to be enough. And I think that that is, if I could tell any person that was in any situation like you and I have lived through, you're never gonna be good enough for them. And like
No.
when you have to say, like, I'm good enough for myself, I don't need to be good enough for you. And because we're always gonna get the shit under the stick for it. We're always going to get whatever is going to happen, to us. And I remember my ex saying, like, "You're no better than the gum on the bottom of my shoe. Like, you do not deserve to live. You will be in a fucking ditch." Like, but it's that constant talk that makes you feel so insecure. Like, I opened an Amazon package one time and like I guess I wasn't supposed to do that. I don't know. But I got knives thrown at me and the box thrown at me. And do you know, like to this day, if an Amazon package comes, I still have like that it's a
Yep.
visceral reaction. And it's like, okay, wait a second, hold on, listen, like I'm not there. I'm here. I'm good enough for me. I can open an Amazon package by myself and be okay. Like
Yep.
it but you have to walk through it because you never feel good enough. You never
No. It
safe. You
never goes away.
no.
No, no, we were talking. So my husband just had surgery. I was out
Right.
there with him. He was fine. He was sleeping next to me. We were in a full size bed. Two humans in a full size bed should not be allowed. It's so hard. So he was asleep, right? And just had surgery, and I was not going to wake him up. And I reverted back to that internal fear, and it wasn't even the same. He is not the same human. And even the next morning, I was like, he's like, "How did you sleep?" And I'm like, "I didn't." And like I just tell him, what it was, because he knows it's not about him and he talks through that with me. But it is so frustrating. And I think until I had someone that understood, like those moments are not about anybody else but me and what my body is feeling. But I think I was conditioned for such a long time to believe that choosing myself was selfish. And unlearning that is near impossible. I think I tell myself that every single day, but even like I try to shower. And if my kids are awake or doing something, I feel like I'm doing something wrong or like I shouldn't do that because I'm taking time away from someone else that needs me. That's not
100%.
real. I can shower. I can do that, but I
Right?
don't feel like I can, and that is
Right.
so frustrating. And especially I think as a third I think when I left my abuser, I was, like, around 35-ish something, which makes it even more frustrating because I'm like, "Okay, I'm near 40. I have children, and I can't make a decision for myself without having a panic attack." That is infuriating.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you this too, because did your person also like dress you and tell you what to wear and tell you how to eat and tell you right?
I couldn't wear makeup because he told me it looks disgusting, and I'm like, "Okay, but, like, what if I just wanna feel pretty?"
It's gotten into our brains because somebody for so long has told us how to operate our existence.
Yeah.
So it's like, now what? Now we do have to, just like you said, make a decision. And what's interesting is what you just said, because again, you and I are going to have revelations today, but I feel like you're an amazing mom. And I don't even obviously know you that well, but like
Thank
we
you.
can do that for our kids all day long. We can get them to school. We can make their lunch. We can, they're sick. Boom, 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 boom. When it comes to us, wait,
Absolutely
what?
not.
Like, how do I it took me literally I was chronically ill for so long. Do you know how long it took me to get to a doctor? Because I'm just like, "I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I got this. I got that."
Yep.
Like, because my brain doesn't work the same way it operates to take care of other people because you and I have been so conditioned for so long to take care of everyone else but ourselves.
Well, and then I don't know if you relate to this, I got in trouble when I would take care of myself or do something for myself. Like, I was told I was selfish, or I was told like, I was literally screamed at. There's one situation, I love baths. I don't like baths to get clean, but I love baths to relax. And there was one time where this was a prisoner year, and so it was a hot mess all the time. He had a friend that lived with us, and they went to go to the gas station or something, and so I was like, "I'm gonna try and lay in a bath really quick," and usually I could hear when they would get home, and I didn't, and he came and, like, beat the crap out of me in the bathtub,
Probably
and I still struggle with that. There's days where, like, that moment is all that flashes through my head, and I get so frustrated that things that I love, that make me feel relaxed and make me feel like a human, are now tainted, and I can't ever get rid of them because they're so vivid and so intense. And so, like, when I make the joke, like, I lived a Dateline episode, I mean, it is a joke, but also, like, if you were to put all the things I did into a TV show, like, it would probably do pretty good. And it's just
we
screwed
should have
up,
It Ends With Us movie, and a lot better than Blake and whatever his name. I
right?
just oh, sorry, but no,
It's sad that, like, those
it's so
moments
sad.
of, like, self-care are now never going to be just self-care.
100%. Down to, like, when we do our makeup and curl our hair, it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Am I doing something wrong now? Am I
Yep.
gonna get what's he gonna say?"
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
"Girl, I'm so sorry.
It's
We're
okay, no
just
worries.
we need a moment." I feel like I'm just like, we live the same life and it just fucking sucks.
Well, and I think that's why I get so irritated, and in one of my interviews, I said, "I don't think I have found one abuser that is unique. I have talked to so many people that I relate to on such a deep level because they have done the same exact things. They degrade you the same, they make you feel worthless. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's big, but the result is always the same. So if we can all sit here and figure out that they're the same, then why has someone that is smarter than me not figured out how to identify these people and rehabilitate them in some way, shape, or form? I don't have the tools to do it, but you can't tell me that it's hard to figure out because, like you and I have said, this is the first time we have talked in person, and I
Yes,
feel like I know the life you've lived.
literally, literally.
So, like, why can't we figure it out on a grander scale and do something different? Because what is happening right now, the justice system doesn't work.
Well,
Like,
they
being
fucking
told
fail you every single
every time, every
every
time. And I've said the justice system is a giant pile of loopholes. It
mhm.
shouldn't be that. It should be right and wrong. It shouldn't be find the loophole that works for you. It's broken. It is broken.
It's also what I okay, we're gonna go down a tangent really quickly. I'm gonna try and, like, keep my thoughts together, and you don't know this part about me, but I worked for someone in the self-help industry for some time, which if anyone can Google me, you'll figure it out, but, like, I am so sick of okay, we have the 2 different modules, right? We have the justice system where it's like, you need the proof, you need to go file the report, you need to do this, and you have that, and if you don't have any of these things, then we're never gonna believe you.
Mhm.
Then we have the other side of it where it's like, go jump on a trampoline and just pretend it's all okay and, like, just move on, just, like, get
Mhm.
rid of it. But then the other person is still doing it, right? And I know this
Mhm.
is like I don't know if I said that, like, in articulate ways, but what I am trying to persuade anyone that's listening to this is, like, there's no good option for
No.
us
No.
because people are they're either gonna believe you or they're just gonna tell you to get over it. And there's really no in between. There's
No.
nobody well, except for you, girl, that is, like, allowing this to happen where it's like, "No, like, we actually need to process this. We need to figure it out." And just because maybe we didn't want to go through the justice system because how many times did we have the police come over to our house and they just looked at us and they were like, "Oh, well, she seems fine," and then they just leave and I had at one point, like, literally 6 police officers surrounding my bed, all with body cams on me, and still no one did fucking anything.
Well, that's the thing. I tell people all the time, I totally understand that that has to be infuriating as a police officer, okay? Like, I don't understand the paperwork that goes into it. I'm not gonna claim to understand what that looks like, okay? But the one time that a victim of domestic violence decides to leave, if you have not done your job and given them the tools that they need, you will set them up to go back, because this world is not set up to help them leave. Like, you've signed up to do this job. So, fun fact about Lyndsey, my husband now was a firefighter when we started dating. He was a firefighter for 18 years. And I think that that is why he is able to hold space for me and my kids. And we are able to talk about our trauma in any way that it comes to us. And he doesn't look at us like we have seven heads, because he has seen the darkest parts of the world. He has seen death. He has seen all of that, right? But
Yes.
I think that the first responder people sometimes forget why they signed up for that job. And I think that there are so many things that just need to be tweaked, right? Like we talked about with him, when domestic violence victims are taken in an ambulance, they should be given the option to say, I want to go alone, or like make that policy that the person has to meet them at the hospital to give them a moment alone to ask for help. Because I was never alone to ask for help. And so just,
Come with you.
yep.
Always,
And so
because if
just
there's some
different,
bruise or something that they need to talk themselves out of or say or monitor what
yes,
you're saying. I never had even just a physician appointment because you have to, I don't know, I guess for him it was like that they have to cover their checks, they have to do this.
hmm,
And I understand exactly what you're saying, girl, and I'm so sorry to like interject here.
don't,
The same point in time, I feel like that needs to be a conversation that has to happen in this world
yes,
because if you even have police in your house for whatever reason, take a deeper look. I get it. They're mostly young men. It is what it is. And I think that's also what makes it harder for people like you and me to like even be like, oh yeah, this is what's happening because I'm
yeah.
scared of you because you are a
Well,
man, actually.
and one thing that I feel, and this is on my bucket list for this year, I had the shelter director for the Refuge Utah, which is the nonprofit organization that helped us. She came and talked to me. We were talking about the lethality assessment that they're going around, and they're like, okay, this is all the police officers are supposed to do this. They're supposed to ask these questions when there's DV, right? And it's like this law that's going around. It's supposed to tell them how lethal your situation is. I said, okay, great. How do they identify the abuser? What training are they given to identify who is the victim and who is the abuser? And she's like, I don't know. And so my next goal is to talk to a police officer. Because again, I don't understand your policies. I don't. But like, you look at the Gabby Petito documentary and the body cam footage of like that whole situation, right? It's
Yes.
heartbreaking. What
Yep.
training were they given? Clearly none. And he's cool as a cucumber. You watch my body cam footage, it's the same. I was in tears. I had black eyes. I was trying to stay calm and speak in full sentences. And he is cool as a cucumber in the back of a cop car. I was going to Walmart. She just does this. I'm so sorry she's wasting your time. Thank God I had the police officers that I did, but that's not always the case. And so I think that, like, okay, there are these things that are in place. That's great. But are we giving people the tools that they actually need to make these things helpful? I don't think we are. I think that there needs to be more conversations. And I hope that people listen to our conversation, because, again, I don't know how to change that. I don't know who I need to talk to change that. But I will talk to whoever I need to talk to help them understand what we went through, so that maybe we can make a change. Maybe someone who can do something about it hears our conversation and understands it differently than they did before. That's my hope. Because again, I see the lethality assessment. That's great. That's awesome. But like, there's still gaps that we have that we need to fill.
I am like reminiscing and flashing back to like when I was in Vegas, and obviously that's a whole different ball. I remember he drug me outside, pushed me down. There was like this like rock. I don't know how to explain it. You know, like where there's a parking lot and there's like all the rock beds and then there's
Yeah.
big rock. He pushed me down. I smacked my head and there was, I don't even know how many police officers were just coming up. And I remember him like going like this and was like, get the fuck up and tell them that you're fucking fine. I'm bleeding from my head, sobbing, crying. And I went and shook every police officer's hand. And I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. It was a misunderstanding. There were Uber drivers, there were taxi drivers that were like coming by, checking on me after the fact. But the police went away. And I think that that's what the craziest thing is I wonder what kind of situation, like how bad does it have to be for the police to be like, okay, you're saying you're fine, but I can see that you're not. When do they, and again, I have so many police friends. I love law enforcement. Like, I'm not saying anything bad. I
No.
just, when is it that you press a little harder and you realize the person that's like covering for the person that's over there being calm as a cucumber and this, that, and the
Mhm.
other. When you're sobbing with like mascara tears and blood streaming down your actual fucking face,
Mhm.
when do you press a little harder? And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because I think so many people just want to cover and make it all okay. I think that you and I both felt that way so many times where we're just like, we just want to make it all okay. We just want it to be better. We'll get through it. We'll do it again tomorrow. Like it is what it is. Just get through this moment right now. But then who's actually there to help you?
No one. Well, and again, like if you ask for help and it backfires and it doesn't go well, then you're getting your ass kicked 8 times harder later. Do you know what I mean? And so it's not always like, okay, yeah, just leave. What happens when you try to leave and they catch you leaving?
A hundred
And, like,
percent.
for me, I'm trying to get 3 kids out of the house without him noticing, and he's never leaving the house. So tell me how easy that is to get them out dead silent and not have them panic and be scared. My goal is not to have my kids be scared. We already are living in terror, and they think it's normal. And so it's just I don't know, I think people there's so many things that could be changed, and I think too, like, going back to, like, different, like, people who see things like police officers and pushing. And I think too, like doctor's appointments, if you go in and someone is speaking for another person, I think maybe something should be looked into. Find a way to get that other person out of the room and give that person an opportunity to, I don't know, speak up. I don't know that I would have. Like same situation. I tried to leave. I talked about it in my podcast. He threw me backwards. I ended up with 4 staples in the back of my head. And when we went to the emergency room, he told them I fell off a dresser in our basement. And I didn't talk to anybody. It was during COVID, so no one was allowed in with me, but he was the one that spoke for me the entire time. And then the whole time that I was in the hospital, I don't remember anyone coming in and talking to me. Granted, I had just had a major head injury, so I don't remember a lot, but I feel like that should have been a moment where that should have been maybe a red flag for people, and it
100%.
wasn't.
I think that if we could summarize everything that we've talked about is this just needs to be a bigger conversation
Mhm.
because I think there's so many people out there that are like suffering in silence and nobody knows about it because again, I know we talked about this a little bit ago, but like it's that picture perfect. Like you're supposed to have this like beautiful marriage and this, that, and the other thing, and you have these kids and you don't want to take your kids out in silence and you want to just like keep the peace. And I think that you and I are peacekeepers.
Mhm.
That's what
Yep.
we've always tried to do. But there has to be a point where we all realize that maybe it's not so peaceful behind closed
Yeah.
doors, and
Well,
that's
one thing too that I absolutely hate, and I didn't even realize I hated it until after, is the phrase marriage is hard.
mm,
That, I mean, because again, when you're living in a situation and you're young and you don't necessarily know what relationships are supposed to look like, and you're having these struggles, and then you go to someone and you're like, hey, like this feels really weird. This maybe doesn't feel okay. I think one, people have a really hard time talking about traumatic, dark things because it makes people uncomfortable. So they avoid those conversations. And so they minimize them because why would we talk about this dark, evil thing? And two, like, I don't know what someone else's marriage looks like behind closed doors. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so then when someone says, like, things are hard, you just got to be there for your person, power through me as this, 20-year-old that has no clue what life is supposed to look like and what okay, well, this is just what it is. I just need to love him. Like I'm his wife. I need to support him through this. And so that dismissed really ugly behavior and it dismissed a conversation that could have led into someone being like, okay, actually, no, that's not normal. Right.
right,
I think
right.
people, if you're going to make a comment or have an opinion on someone's trauma, be willing to go into their trauma with them and understand it before you have such a bold opinion.
And not to bring up this segue, but generationally too, it's
Mm,
different. And with religion and everything that we talked about, it's always like, honor the spouse and this, that, and the other thing. So like I think we're kind of ingrained in our generation. I think now, hopefully for the newer generation, it's different. Like people can have more open conversations of you don't have to just please and this, that, and the other thing. But fuck, man, it's hard
it is
because
hard.
marriage isn't, in my opinion, supposed to be that hard.
No,
It's
I say all the time,
horribly abusive. It shouldn't be that.
No, I say all the time, life is hard. Your person shouldn't be hard. Life can be hard every day of the week, but your person should not feel hard. I have not left one conversation with my husband feeling disrespected or like I don't matter or he didn't listen to what I had to say. I feel like a human. I feel like
100%.
my own human. So life can be hard. I don't think marriage should be. And I think I don't know, one thing that I never saw as a kid was my parents have a conversation that was difficult. I never had the sex talk with my parents, and so I never had a really uncomfortable conversation with my parents. And so then when you go into a relationship and you've never had an uncomfortable conversation, how easy is that to face with someone? Why wouldn't you just avoid it and never talk about it?
100%.
And so I think showing our kids what a conversation looks like, how to have an uncomfortable conversation, and how to have a respectful uncomfortable conversation, right? I think that disagreeing with someone can be okay, and I think that is a good thing. Learn how to disagree with someone in a respectful way, and I think how do you learn that unless you've shown someone how to do it?
It sounds like
So
your man is your best friend.
I love him. I miss him so stupid much. This has been, like, the hardest 2 months of my life. I'm like, "This is dumb," but
Women who
he's
have men that
incredible.
travel, like, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's what they say. Well, and
It
I'm
doesn't
like,
have.
I'm so grateful that I could go out and be with him, but I just want you home with us. Like seeing him be a dad to our kids and that he wants to be a dad. That is something that I never thought my kids would have. And I am so grateful every day that they do. He is the most incredible human, and they all call him dad. And my daughter graduates this year, and the adoption was just finalized in July of last year. So this year, as a senior, she's going to walk with his last name. And I already know I'm going to bawl my eyes out. This whole year, I'm going to cry my eyes out. I'm going to cry right now talking about it. I remember leaving my abuser and being in this apartment that I was so grateful for, but having a job wondering, what in the hell do I do now? Feeling like I was
Yeah.
worthless and that I was never going to be more than I was in that moment, and wondering, like, okay, I have these 3 kids that I have to give better to, right? And now she plays lacrosse and she has friends and sorry.
No, honey, you
I'm
did it.
just so
You did
proud of
it.
the human that she is and that she gets to have a dad that wants her and loves her and is gonna be there for that moment. I didn't know she was gonna have that, and I'm so grateful that she does. So, yay for good men, because I don't think I believed that that existed before him.
I had just lump in my throat. There's hope, friends. There's hope.
There is. Just takes a bit.
It takes a bit, and it also is never gonna be all the way over. You and I are gonna carry all of it, but the best we can do is teach our daughters and sons how to not do that and how not
And
to
that they deserve better. Like, I mean, and even our boys, right? I had a conversation with a childhood sexual assault survivor. She was assaulted at 13. And I have a 15-year-old son. And I don't think that the world teaches boys how to be respectful men right now. And that scares me. I know how to raise a girl. I am a girl. I know what scares me about my boy, but I don't know the thought process that boys have. And I'm grateful that I have my husband, but I think that the world needs to do better at producing respectful men, not cool boys.
100%. And social media and television is not helping any of that.
No,
But that's a
no.
whole we could do 700 podcasts, like,
We
honestly.
really could, honestly, but that's why I love these conversations, right? Because I think it just opens my mind to things that I wouldn't have thought of, or it heals parts of me that I wouldn't heal otherwise because I feel seen by someone in a way that I wouldn't by someone who doesn't understand trauma in the way that you do.
100% sister, I feel the same way about you. I also just, like, very grateful. Not that we've lived through similar things because I wouldn't wish this on my worst fucking enemy.
Mhm.
I'm very grateful that we can have an honest conversation like this because, like you said, like, parents don't wanna hear about, "Love you, mom and dad." They don't wanna hear about nobody wants to hear about horrible things.
Well, and especially when it's real, right? When it's a real person and it's not a TV show and it's something that they have to sit with and they have to be like, "Oh crap, that happened to you." That makes people uncomfortable, and there are not many people in this world that can hold space for those conversations, and that's why we are left feeling so isolated, and we've already come from a situation where we were extremely isolated. I don't
Right.
want to feel that anymore. No, thank you. I'm going to choose different and we're going to do this instead.
With our blankets.
I know. So, how did you end up getting out of your abusive relationship?
That is a very long story. I think that when guns got introduced to the house, it got really, listen, it was always kind of life or death. That was just something that happened from the beginning because as I mentioned in the beginning, duct tape and, I was young. So I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this 700 times. I just don't want my parents to blame themselves any more than they do. And they do. So I love my dad. But when I got with my ex, they moved away. They moved across the country. 17, 18, stuck with this 30 some year old man, had nowhere to go, had no place to be, and just kind of got legitimately put in isolation. There was a time where he left me out on the porch in winter for 3 days.
Slept under a horse trailer. We've done the same things. I feel like everything you say, I'm like, "I got
Done
you."
it, been there. Well, but it's that condition, right? So then
Mhm.
it's like, okay, well, if I survive that, then at least when I'm inside, okay, yeah, I might get the shit beat out of me, but I'm inside and I have food or water, a basic human necessity, whatever. But I think when it got to the point where I was like, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I will die here, that I'm either going to die trying to leave or I'm going to die staying. And I felt in my brain something clicked and I was like, I'd much rather die trying to leave. And he held the gun to my head and I will never, like, it wasn't just a situation. I think people think in movies where it's like, oh, it's quick. Like, no, it's like 14 hours of you getting fucking berated with something on your fucking head. And they take the bullets out and they do the little thing. My therapist always says this. So for anyone watching with the smile on my face, I have to talk about these things like I'm going to a grocery store and I am talking about a grocery list because if I actually go back to that place in my brain, I don't come out well.
No, same.
Period. And I think people think that when they see me talk about this, and I've obviously spoken and written songs about it and this, that, and the other thing, they're like, oh, well, she's smiling, she's whatever, she's fine. No, I'm not fucking fine. This is how I compartmentalize it. This is how I deal with it. And this is the only way that I can get through my existence of a day is if I keep it so G-rated because I can't go back there. And so I guess maybe I needed to preface saying that because my brain's taking me back there right now and I don't want to do it. Said person I ended up working for, Tony Robbins. Yeah, I went to him and my ex was like, you know what, you need to go because he's going to tell you how fucked up you are and he's going to, make you like realize all the things that I'm saying. Like you're nothing, you're worthless. And I went there and even though my experience now, and I don't know what I can talk about is different. But when I first went there, I experienced what actual love was. And it wasn't from another man, wasn't anything like that. It was basic human decency. It was someone that when we were doing the Dickens or some of the workshops that he had me do, well, all of us do, 15,000 people. I just realized that what I was living in was not anywhere close to basic human rights.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a very big wake up call for me. And I went home and I, again, just got the ever loving shit beat out of me and like in a closet and just deprived of everything and like forced to perform and all these things. And I was like, this isn't it. It's just not it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was seeing a therapist that I very much love. Still to this day, I wouldn't say friends. I don't know if that's the therapeutic thing, but we keep in touch. She keeps in touch with me. And I went to her because he had gone to her office and actually threatened her and was like, you're never allowed to talk to Jenny again. And I was like, I have to leave. I've got to go. And we like kind of formulated a plan. We were supposed to go to Jamaica. It was this whole thing. So I was like, he's going to get on the plane. I'm going to go. Like this is how this is going to happen. Obviously, he read into some things and that's not how that all played out. But I am very grateful for those two very big experiences that led me to believe that what I was living in was not love. It was not anything that I should be in. And I called my mom. I packed all of my important things. She had just moved back to Virginia like 2 days before. And we did it. We did it. My therapist was right there with me and it was terrifying. Absolutely fucking terrifying. The amount of times that man has driven by houses that I've lived in even now. And even just because they have another significant other too. That was,
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much I can share here, but I'm going to because I feel like it needs to be talked about. Like they got into other relationships and I don't
Mhm.
know if yours did.
Mhm.
The amount of guilt that lands right here.
Mhm.
Watch other women go through the same thing I did. And I was approached to go to court and he got fired and all these things. And I was pregnant at the time with my first, with my husband. And I was like, damn, I don't think I can do this now. Could
Yeah.
I have then? I don't know. I don't know that I was strong enough then. I was strong enough at that point. But then I'm thinking, I have a beautiful family and I have a baby on the way. What do I want to put myself through? Do I want to go
Yeah.
back and relive all of that? And honestly, Linz, I'm going to say this to you. Hindsight, I really wish I did. I really wish I did because I am watching other women suffer because I didn't make those decisions.
But okay, I'll throw it out there. I'm going to hit my cord in the process. I did. I went to jury trial. My two oldest children had to testify in jury trial with me because they watched it. My children had to sit in a courtroom with a jury in front of my abuser, their father. That was the first time they saw him in public, in the person. So it had been 1 year and 1 month since his arrest. That was the first time they saw him in public. His asked for the kids to be able to do it via Zoom. So, or at the courthouse that we were at, there was a police station attached. And I said, can they be at the police station, but just do it Zoom so they don't have to be in the courtroom? That's intimidating. And his
Yeah.
attorney fought it, said no. We went through jury trial. He was convicted. He was found guilty of all 5 charges. His stance is still that he did nothing wrong, that I made it up to hurt him and take the kids. He moved in with his now new wife. What I heard was like 20 days after his arrest. It wasn't even a full month after he was arrested that he moved in with a new girl. She posts things about me all the time online, that I'm making it up and that I'm a horrible mom and all the things. Even though I did go and I held him accountable and I went through all the things and my kids went through all the things, I don't believe he's changed. I don't believe he is different. He hasn't held himself accountable. How do you change? If you haven't held yourself accountable, how do you change? You can't make someone want to be something different. Even if you would have gone and held him accountable, that doesn't mean he's going to change.
I appreciate you saying that. I know that you can feel me swallowing my words in this moment because it's the hardest thing you're ever gonna have to do is watch
It is.
someone else go through it, and then you're like, "Well, what if he has children with this said woman?" And all
And
of a
that's the
sudden
thing. Probably he was sentenced to 28 days in jail. That's what he got for almost killing me. So that didn't feel great. There's always going to be things where you feel like you're unresolved and that it wasn't fair, right? Because it wasn't. None of it was fair. And so I think give yourself grace in being able to move on and being with your life now, because even if you held him accountable, even if you went and he was found guilty and you did all the things, that doesn't mean he's going to be a different person.
100%. I will say one more thing on that note too is to all the women out there that have gone through things like this, don't ever jump straight into another relationship.
No. I get that comment all the time when I talk on podcasts because I'm talking about 18 years in about a 2-hour time period. That's really hard to condense. But I was single for almost 2 years before I met my new husband and in therapy twice a week for most of that time, working on myself. And I did try and date a couple times and very quickly realized that I was not ready. It took me a very long time. But so when I say now that I'm remarried, it wasn't right after. And I think if you get with someone who A says their ex is crazy, evaluate that a little bit. And if they have left someone that they have been with for almost 2 decades and you're with them less than a month later,
Mhm.
again, maybe a little bit of a red flag. I don't know. Maybe
A
that's your cup of tea.
giant one.
One other thing that I think is fun in all of this, in trauma in general, I think a lot of people have a lot of really good advice that they think, right? The why didn't you leave sooner or whatever, where there's just the dumbest things that they could say. But out of all of the trauma that you went through, what do you think is the most shocking thing someone said to you during?
You deserved it
I got that one too, because I stayed.
because you say exact. Thank you for taking the
Why?
word
And like, why is that?
of my I think that people and listen, I thank God I did not have children with this man. That is the only thing I think that this one upstairs helped me with because if I did, I know I would not be here. I would not be talking to you. Easy. I already know. Done. But I think that people just think it's so easy to just upright and leave a situation. But I also think that people don't get. I'm going to really try and phrase this as well as I can possibly articulate it. But when you've grown accustomed to living a certain way for such a long time, it's almost like, I guess maybe I'll say it like this. It's almost comfortable to be that uncomfortable. You know what you're going to face. You know what you're going to deal with. You know how to navigate the day. You know how to get through it. What does the other side of that look like? And maybe that's the thing that I would say to anybody that has heard anything like you and I have heard. You deserved it because you stayed. No, you have a beautiful life that's on the other side of it. Just fucking walk or go. Or
Mhm.
man,
Yeah,
go. Go.
whichever.
Because I just feel like people think that we're weak or we've already had a horrible existence before. Or maybe we're messed up in the head. Everybody always calls us the crazy ones because we're the
Mm.
ones that choose to accept this as our existence. But in reality, it's more or less we're the ones trying to not just necessarily keep the peace, but I don't know the words. It's not just surviving. It's like we just want to get through it.
Well, and I think who wants to accept that the world you've built for yourself and the life you've built for yourself is that, right? And so if you can
It's
make
a
it
big-
better, then
Yeah.
it's not that anymore.
Yeah.
I totally
100%.
get it. I totally get it.
I wish that everyone that has ever been in any type of even if it's one instance, and you and I obviously lived years of it, right? If it happens one time, it's gonna escalate and it's gonna get a lot worse. And I think that especially young women and men, I just have this special place in my heart because it happened to us so very young. And so you kind of learn to deal with it and you're like, oh, that just happened one time. Or no, it's going to get a lot worse. Duck out while you can.
Yep. One example that I give my daughter is okay, at a new job, right? When someone goes in and it's their first day on a job, they're so excited and they're so eager to learn about all the things and they do really, really good. And then about 2 months in, they start slipping a little bit. And about 6 months in, you finally kind of get the idea of what kind of an employee they're going to be. Relationships are exactly the same. Like, you know what I mean? Don't settle. Don't settle.
That was the song I wrote for my daughters called Better Than You. And literally, it was talking about the fact that would you want your daughters to stay in a relationship where you're treating, me like this? What do you want for your children? And you and I just said that we want our daughters to deserve better than what we
Mm-hmm.
went. And
Yes.
and I think that that's my motive behind that song is exactly what you just said. They just deserve so much more, and to co-create that in our beautiful babies and to say, "This isn't it.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't it," you know?
Yep.
And it might be a moment, but if it continues to escalate that way, run, baby girl, because,
It never goes the other direction, ever.
they'll always
So
show you who
it's true
who they are.
who they are. I remember leaving that situation feeling so weak and so broken. And now looking back, I'm like, holy hell, I actually am the strongest human I have ever met. To be able to go almost an entire year barely sleeping, taking care of someone else who I was never going to make happy. It didn't matter what I did or how much I tried, I was never going to make them happy. And be a mom and work full time on top of it. I'm a superhero. I'm a fucking badass.
You are.
Thank
Fuck
you.
yes.
But it took me taking him out of my orbit. He was the
100%.
one that made me question all of the things that I had. And one thing that I think I realized too is my husband now is my biggest cheerleader. I have the most random off the wall ideas. In July of this last year, I was like, I want to host a mother daughter event. I'm going to host it at a high school. I want it to be free. I just went off. And again, he's a pilot. He's never home. We have 5 kids. I shouldn't be getting these ideas where I'm like, I'm doing this. And he's like, yes, how do we do it? And he just supports me. And I've never had someone like that in my life that is not threatened by my dreams and wants me to succeed and will do whatever he can to help me reach that, not just support it, but help me reach it. And I think find those people.
100%. I always say now, your husband should be your literal best friend. The best girlfriend that you have should be the person that you marry. Well, you know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Yep.
Because you have to have that. You have to. If they're going to diminish anything that you do,
You will be 0 parts of yourself in no time flat. If you have someone that questions anything that you do or is like, "Oh, maybe you're not that great." The comment that I got all the time, "Maybe you shouldn't speak in public because I know you don't wanna sound dumb." But to me, that came as like, "Oh, he's looking out for me. He doesn't want me to sound dumb. That's so nice of him to care for me." And so it wasn't any but I stopped talking to people. I
girl,
don't
I get
think
it.
I sound dumb. I don't think I'm uneducated, but I believed that.
100%. Or, oh my gosh, you probably feel gross because you don't have your hair curled or your
Mhm.
eyelashes on.
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, thank you so much. I know it's not easy to be vulnerable and like talk about it because it does make you kind of go back to that moment, right? But I do feel like the more I talk about it, I do talk about it like a TV show, and it is healing in a way because it separates me a little bit from it, but I know it's still my life. And I love how much it helps other people feel seen. Right now, I love how much I relate to you and what you've gone through. It makes me feel less like a freak. And so I am so grateful for you and your vulnerability.
sweetheart, I'm grateful to know you, but also put some pep in your step and I'm gonna pump your tires because what you're doing is it's not an easy thing. It's not. And
Thank
so
you.
you're giving this platform a microphone in a way that most people don't. I think that some people think it's just hashtag me too. No, it's so much. And I see, do you know how insecure I am? I know that you feel that too, because I second guess myself. I'm like, oh my God, I shouldn't say that or whatever, because we're on a public platform and I'm always
Time.
worried about what somebody's gonna say.
All the
But
time.
I am so incredibly impressed by the fact that this has been a narrative that is not spoken about in this depth.
Mhm.
It's not just a one situation or a one incident. It's a thing.
And I think when I had this podcast dream, I had it I mean, it was probably about a year after I left my abuser that I started thinking about, okay, I want a way to connect with people. When I left, there was nothing that I could turn to that made me feel like my situation wasn't the only situation like it. And I knew that wasn't real. They talk about it all the time, but there was nothing that I could turn to that I was like, this is what I'm going through. That's what happened to me. And I wanted to create that to where people just felt like there were conversations that were being had that made them feel seen and understood and gave them a place to tell their experience. It's not my job to say what happened or didn't happen in someone's situation, but I know the trauma that I went through and I want to be able to talk about it without feeling judged. And there is nowhere that allows that right now. And so I want to be that place.
You're doing it, girl. I'm so
Thank
proud of you.
you. Well, I'm so grateful to know you. I'm dead serious. I'm going to come and stay on your farm and visit you.